Hello and welcome to yet another episode of The Exchange. I'm Avin Indrasoma and we're joined by a President's Council, a minister, former minister, specifically a foreign minister, a finance minister and a justice minister. Welcome to the program, Mr. Ali Sabry.
Thank you, Avin, for having me.
We're joining you at a time where the world is at quite a unique situation. We saw the US and Israel launch an attack on Iran, but Tehran hasn't fallen overnight. They're giving a good run for their money. How does this make way to Sri Lanka, and how are we affected in this whole equation?
Yeah, we are affected by many ways. I thought this could have been avoided, and diplomacy could have taken place instead of this kind of an invasion, right, into the sovereignty of Iran. But Iran, what do you expect? They had to fight back, right? So several areas which Sri Lanka is very, very concerned have been affected directly. Tourism is down by about 30% and then luckily the foreign remittances have stood test of time for the time being, at least. I hope that will remain so. But the most important thing is our external bill, particularly on oil and gas and things like that, have disproportionately gone up. So it will have a great affectation on Sri Lanka, and we need to carefully monitor this. And not only Sri Lanka, countries in the region, Sri Lanka, and particularly the vulnerable countries who are dependent on particularly oil, gas, coal, as grain, as well as even fertilizer. All these prices have gone up very much.
So while we're at it, what's your reading of the whole situation in the Middle East? Do you believe the US and Israeli faction expected Tehran to give up or fall like they saw in their previous invasions, or what do you think?
I think they have misread the Iranian structure there. They thought that when they go and attack Iran the way they did, and taken off their leadership, destructed the almost entirety of their infrastructure, and then even attacking their own universities, and to expected people to rise against the government and topple them, and that wouldn't happen. So they, in fact, it emboldened the regime and supported, because that's not the way you go and do it. So, and number one. Number two is we must also understand that this is not Iraq, where Saddam Hussein had a kind of a monopoly in the whole of the regime, or Libya, or Assad, Syria. This is a system, like a communist system. Whether you agree with that system or not is a different thing. It's a system which has been well-oiled for about 47 years, and they have a different regime. And they expected this, and therefore they have broken the whole country into 31 different segments and given autonomy to them. So even without a central command coming from them, those 31 regions will under a commander and up to about 10 people down there. That one go, if you take one, the second, and the second is third. So it's not going to be that easy. So I think they are learning that, because they thought that this is like Venezuela or kind of that kind of an operation. Unfortunately, it had not been the case for the US and the Israelis, but in a way is a good lesson for them also, just not to go and involved in somebody else. But unfortunately, there is a lot of calamity for innocent people in the region from both sides, or all sides for that matter.
An argument that's often coming from the other end of the spectrum is that Iranians are being suppressed ever since the Ayatollahs came into power. Do you think it's the US's place to go in and change that? And also, do you think they're doing it for the people of Iran?
No, they are not doing it for the people of Iran. Yeah, to a certain degree, yes. I thought Iran should have opened up, slowly democratized a bit, little bit more liberal, and allow the youngsters to come in and have pluralism to take place, rather than religious ideology being forced on people. That's a different matter. But how can others come and decide on that and go and attack somebody else's thing? Not so. This is precisely what the Netanyahu and the Israelis wanted for a long, long period of time. They have identified 6 countries in the region, and they have one after the other, they have taken all of them, and this is the last bastion for them. Yemen, Syria, Libya, Iraq, and all of those countries have been dismantled more or less, and this is the last bastion. And he's open about it, Netanyahu. So Netanyahu, through his massive influence on President Trump through IPAC and the funds what they put into the American media, American financial system, American political system have disproportionate interest. If you listen to Tucker Carlson, if you look into Marjorie Jones, if you listen to Kent, all of them are saying the same thing. What you were brought in to make America great and to look into the American problem, but you are going and fighting somebody else's battle. So this is basically Israeli's battle. America had got dragged in.
That's a lot going on in the Middle East and beyond, right? Sri Lanka has hailed its non-aligned policy as always, but we saw us making the headlines with the IRIS Dana, as well as the president coming to parliament and saying we have denied the permission for 2 US fighter jets to land at Hambantota. So we can deny these requests from certain factions, but do you think it does more harm than good to come out and say it rather proudly, arguably?
I think I agree with you. I think denying is fine because that may have been our policy, but that coming out and taking all, publicly, and then it all, particularly under President Trump, they can take this into different ways. So it could have been better avoiding that, yes.
Just touching on that point, do you think, how in your experience, how forgiving is the US when it comes to things like this?
So all depends on the administration. Right now, you just can't predict it. It's all, the entire diplomacy is based on truth social. So it is not, there is no consistency. So if there is no consistency, you cannot predict. It says something in the morning and the evening. So your guess is as good as mine. So therefore, we have to be very careful not to tread into uneasy path, and I think wait and watch. But Sri Lanka had always held on to our independent foreign policy. So therefore, there is nothing wrong in holding on to it and saying that we are independent and accordingly acting like as an independent foreign policy. But then, as you say, you don't need to announce about it and each and every detail of it. But you can, when somebody, it happens always when you are there, several pressures will come in. They wanted to vote with this side, vote with the other side, all those things. But you don't go and announce that. You take your decision, right? Unless it's absolutely necessary.
Right. Apart from the announcing part, do you agree with how Sri Lanka has been handling the whole situation foreign policy-wise?
So far, I think to a great extent, yes. To a great extent, Sri Lanka had done well during this particular period of time without being dragged into any side. But having said so, Sri Lanka also cannot totally disregard the international order, international law, and UN Charter and sovereignty of the states. So in that, I thought Sri Lanka could be a little more proactive in holding on to the sovereignty of the nation and also the exactly. We could have got together and at least like what we did in the Ukrainian, the Russian crisis, we never took any side, but we told that the UN Charter on sovereignty of the nation should be respected. Without a UN authority, you can't just go and attack someone, because that's the only safeguard. We have countries like Sri Lanka. If a regional or world power chose to come after us, where else for us to go? We can't fight back. We are too small. So the only way is to international order. So we have a moral duty to stand up for that and to protect that. So whether we have been proactive enough is a debatable issue, but having said so, must give the government the credit that so far they have acted pretty well, and even on that resolution tried to condemn the Iranians on the Middle Eastern attack, we refrained and said that is not balanced because it doesn't condemn the invasion by the US and Israel.
And India, as of always, have been exercising their neighborhood first policy. They came to us in 2022, they came to us during Cyclone Ditwa, and even most recently during the energy crisis. Do you think we should make a concerted effort in times like this to stick with them, or is there more to the picture?
No, Indian relationship with Sri Lanka is the most important relationship. We have to carefully handle it. But having said so, internationally we should have our own independent stance on that. That's very, very important, that we should not be seen as an extension of somebody else's foreign policy.
Do you think the state of the relationship came at the cost of us being seen as an extension of somebody?
Some people describe as it is when you talk to the diplomats in private, but I don't think that's a great thing to do, because Sri Lanka should always, and had been always, punching above our weight over a period of time in the international arena. We have been very, very proud and fiercely defended that independent foreign policy and our strategic autonomy. No one should see us as somebody else's extension of somebody else's policy. So case by case, yes, relationship with India is very important. We continue that, but when it comes to other cases, we must look at it independently and take the decision, not because somebody else is taking the decision.
Makes sense. Now, speaking of the region, we saw Pakistan being hailed left and right as a mediator, peacemaker by President Trump and also by the Iranian faction. Do you think India, being the regional power, sort of missed the bus trying to play the mediator role?
A very good question. Yes, I do think like that. I thought India has a massive role to play. India had been a world leader for a long, long period of time. Leader of the non-aligned movement.
We didn't even see the external affairs minister make a proper statement.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, India not only missed the bus. India had probably done a lot of harm to its own aspiration to become the leader of the global south, and and then I thought it's a wrong call for the Prime Minister Modi to visit Israel just before the day of the attack. I mean, they would have not known definitely that's going to be the case. So therefore, I thought it was a missed opportunity for India. India should know that India cannot be a transactional leader. India should shape the policies. India is too big to be a transactional country, too big, and they should understand their size, and they're a great power, they're a great civilization, they're a great history, and they're bound to go places. That will happen, but that should happen with its soul being in place, not at any cost. I thought, I'm a great admirer of Indian civilization, Indian history, Indian national struggle, India shaping the post Second World War. So when you are an admirer, when you see that you're not living up to that expectation, naturally you are saddened. So if you ask me, yes, I'm saddened by the Indian stand.
There's also a narrative or an accusation that we might have lost a friend in Iran in this whole situation, that we could have come out and supported them more openly, considering what they've done for us with the oil and tea agreements, and even in the handling of the IRIS Dana, there were some accusations that the Sri Lankan forces did not allow them to make a port call at Galle. How do you read all this?
I think Iran also must understand we are a small country. We cannot openly take sides. We are dependent on, right? And then when you run a country, the most important thing for the administration of the country is the national interest. So we need to take our national interest into the place. But there are conflicting views on this. I'm not very sure about what exactly happened, but I know I have seen that some narratives say that for about 10 hours they have been asking for permission to come into the country, and they were not allowed and delayed, and that caused the attack on the ship. If that was the case, that was wrong, because we have an obligation under the law of the sea to allow innocent passage, particularly when a vessel which is disarmed, you have gone on a military exercise or something, and it is the distress call. So only time will tell what exactly the timing and all that.
But that would have come with consequences too.
Yeah, that's what I felt. I think on the second ship they acted on that and gave them. So had that been allowed at the first ship itself, they would have prevented that loss, and that could have been a great thing to do. I really don't know, but that is how it seems to be right now. Right now it seems to be that having invited, when the distress calls were there, we had delayed that for about 10 hours. That's the narrative which is very powerful. No one has come and denied that. So that's what the Iranian High Commissioner has said. But having said,
he even said that Sri Lanka invited the ship into its waters.
That's right, he told that. That's right, he told that also. So there is some concern about it. But having said so, I would say that Sri Lanka had handled the situation well in a very, very difficult situation. Yeah.
4 years ago, at the height of the economic crisis, you led Sri Lanka's delegation to the International Monetary Fund, and even today we are in Extended Fund Facility Program. It's fair to say we see some economic recovery. Whose win do you think this is? The governments, the IMFs, or the people who suffered through all of this?
It is the people who suffered, people who endured the difficult decisions which we all took on the long side, and it is who have gone through that. It is their win. right? So Sri Lankan people should be hailed as the winners of this. If economy has recovered because of them, they have paid higher taxes. They have endured not importing vehicles for a long period of time. When they were asked reduce your fuel consumption, they did, right? So it is the people who have endured everything, and very, very difficult. We knew that were very, very difficult decision from VAT to from 8 to 15 to 18. Then the taxations from 18% to 34, 36, the upper bracket. So it is the people who have paid for this, everything else, and as a result of which they have come out of it. So I would say that I know there is a lot of criticism, but if we didn't take those decisions, Sri Lanka would have been something like Venezuela or even Zimbabwe, Zambia, or Lebanon with no end in sight. But in Sri Lanka is a miraculous escape and a miraculous comeback. So I'm proud that we took those very difficult decisions at that point in time.
You seem very proud of the numbers and where we are. Are you thankful that when you famously resigned after one day, the president did not accept your resignation and basically asked you to get back to work?
Yeah, at that point in time, look, I mean, of course, I had a basic knowledge of economics at that time, though I had not a student or professional qualification because I studied on the job. But having said so, when I was appointed, there was a lot of criticism that they wanted an economist. So I thought, fair, it is fair people to ask for that. I said, okay, I'll offer this. Even I offered that I can step down from my parliamentary seat, take somebody from outside even and get that. But if no one is doing it and only finding fault with it, and if our IMF discussions were just 10 days ahead, what do you expect me to do? I could have run away or put up with it. So yes, I'm proud that I had the guts at that point in time. I don't know whether I'll do now, but at that point in time, I was 4 years younger, I had the guts, and I'm grateful. My wife also told me after so much struggle, when I had discussion with her, I said that you do what is right for you and what is right for the country. I don't understand this. So she stood by me. So I think we took that decision. I'm glad that I went there and kind of kick-started the whole process and took quick steps so that it could not be reversed. And I could be, I'm humbled by the fact that I've made a massive contribution towards today's recovery.
Now, Sri Lanka recently hailed the fact that our GDP per capita passed $5,000, and like I said, we see some economic recovery. But do you think the real picture out there in the communities, with poverty and everything in the picture, do you think these numbers on sheets or on paper say the real picture?
No, I think there is a long way to go. So there is, I think better than what it was and much better than what could have been. But having said so, that's not the end. So recovery, we knew that during the economic crisis, the real recovery for Sri Lanka was 3 stages. One is to prevent further depredation at that point in time. So that is to avert further inflation, avert further collapse. So for that you need to take some very difficult decision. We have to disrupt the consumption. That's what we did in order to control the inflation. So we rationed the use of fuel, we control imports, and we increased the interest rate to about 16%. That is to artificially disrupt the consumption. So that's the first phase of it. It's like a vehicle which is going down on a pedestal. So you try to avert it, apply the brake and keep it there. So then you slowly come back to the ground level. That is called stabilization. How do we do that? That you do by increasing your revenue and look at those low-hanging fruits like getting the tourism back. In order to do the tourism back, you need to avert all these queues and electricity 24/7. How do you do that? By introducing cost-reflective pricing. So we did a lot of things. That's a stabilization part. That's taken very well. That's how our revenues have gone up. But what really takes Sri Lanka to the next level is growth. That growth has not taken place at the pace which you would have liked. In order to do that, we need to have serious investment coming from foreign countries. $1 billion kind of an investment must come. Along with that comes new market, along with that comes new technology. That has not taken place. In order to do that, you need to have Economic Transformation Act, a single window. And like Invest India kind of an office in Sri Lanka, so that people come. Even today there is an article in Daily Mirror, you would have seen that, how impossible to invest in this country, how they will push you from pillar to post and pillar to post. So that has not taken place, unfortunately. Tell me one investment, like now these 2 years right now, what the government told at that time, there are billions have been Sri Lankans and all of them are there, they are lined up to come and invest, billions will come, we don't want the water even, we will do it for you and it will come. But who has come? Tell me one investment which is anything above $50 million from foreign country. Even the little investment we have canvassed very hard, the wind power project of the Adanis have been shelved. And I don't know what is the status of the Sinopec investment of over $3 billion, nothing had happened. Those are investments which are canvassed, so that has not been facilitated, new investment has not come, as a result of which growth had not taken place at the pace which we expect. So that's my concern right now. Without growth taking place, we can't give better salaries to the people who have already suffered. Only way is once the inflation goes up, you control the inflation, the prices which went up will never come back. The pace of the price escalation which are being controlled. So what you have, the prices which have gone up will not come down. Hardly it has. So only way to do what is to increase the salary and income also accordingly. That could only happen when growth also taking place at that pace. So that's my concern. Yes, I hope government will take necessary action to, put this in place so that investors are welcome. And one must understand one thing. No country had developed in a free world without people coming and investing. Businesses are making profit. No one is doing charity. So businesses by definition would like to make profit. So what the government should do is to regulate that, get your the revenue as well by way of taxes, and look after the poor and infrastructure. So if the government expects private sector to come and do charity without profit, a kind of situation where they will do least profit. No, there are so many other places to go. So in order to invite them, you must give them something which is inviting them, attractive. That will not take place.
At the height of the external crisis and the economic crisis that followed internally, you all made some incredibly unpopular choices. But we see Sri Lanka finding itself at the heels of the biggest external shock ever since, which is the Middle Eastern situation. We still see the government making decisions like subsidizing diesel. Do you agree with this, or do you think it's time that we look beyond measures like this that are just there to safeguard the popularity of the government?
I think they are trying to do the popularity of the government. I don't believe in subsidies in general. I do believe in looking after the poor. You have to. You can't just disregard the most vulnerable segment of a country. Even during the height of our economic crisis, we negotiated with the World Bank and got about 500 million to come out with this Aswasuma. Before that it was Samurti. And that's an immediate cash transfer. You remember what we used to pay, 2,500 and 3,000 or whatever it is, we increased it to 7,500 to 10,000. So that is because you need to look after them. That's fine. But that need to, over a period of time, you need to weed out the people who are benefiting out of it. I saw recently a TV program, a young boy was telling, his mother, every time, what is her mother's income? She is very happy on the day when the Aswasuma comes. That is because on that particular, and father had enough money, car and everything, so mother gets Asvasama. That means it goes to the wrong hand. That has to be looked at it. Only people who are deserving must go. So looking after the poor and giving subsidiary to everyone, it's not the right thing. You drive a car because you can afford to drive a car. Otherwise you will park and take a pick me or whatever it is and go. Imagine for your car and my car, people who have never gone on a car should subsidize from the price what they pay on bread in order to reduce the price of the diesel. You can't do that. That won't work. That shouldn't work. So that is precisely what weed out. One of the first decision when I took over as finance minister, though it was a short term, I remember I had a conversation in this room with Mr. Kanchana Vijayasekara. I told the minister, he's a brilliant minister, I really like him, he did a lot of great work. Not a single rupee from the treasury any longer. You need to find your money. You have to find the rupees, and if you find the rupees, we'll find you the dollars. If you come out without the rupee to find the dollars, don't come. We are not going to help. So that's why we immediately increased the gas prices. We immediately increased the diesel prices. And we immediately increased the petrol prices because government cannot subsidize that. It has to be cost reflective. And to date it is going on. I'm glad that it is going on because that's the right decision to do, right thing to do. So that subconsciously also reduce the consumption. Even right now it's happening. All of a sudden 200 rupees of a diesel goes up to 450 rupees. So you know I can't be just going on the car if I can't afford. So you only use that vehicle for absolutely what is necessary. So there is discipline in that. So we must live what we can afford to do. I always say, my father used to say always, live according to your means. Don't try to live beyond your means. You will become a debtor. That happened to Sri Lanka. So we cannot afford to live in the same way. Of course, no point of talking about past and all those things. But we must learn from those mistakes. No point of continuing those mistakes. That is all I'm saying. No point of who is responsible. It is the country. Learn from the past and proceed on the right path. That's what I feel.
You spoke about welfare programs, the Asvasama program that was brought in. Do you believe that Sri Lanka's welfare programs have enough or a strong enough off-ramp out of them? I mean, I saw a Facebook post recently of a youth making a comment saying, look, I can only make 7,500 off of Asvasama or whatever the amount. And someone comments saying, you could get a job in this place. And his response to that is, but then I'd lose Asvasama. Do you think people are too clinging to welfare in that bracket? And do you believe we need a stronger off-ramp out of these welfare programs?
I think so. We need to modify in such a way that it only goes to the most deserving people and the rest of the people for a particular period of time. And if you do not find in between certain jobs or whatever it is, you should be off-ramped on that. So I think yes, I think World Bank had been telling about this for a long period of time. You need to come out with a program to identify them, and no one should get a free lunch just like that forever. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka has about 20-25% of the population who are relying on this, right? So, but how do we reduce that? So you have to have a plan for that, and probably the worst of are the farmers. Unfortunately, 28% of the Sri Lankan farmers, the labor population, are farmers. They only contribute 8% to the GDP. That means the hardest working people earn the least. Even that they will go and give it to the Polyamudalali or the rice mills owners at a peanut of the actual cost, actual value. So therefore, government has a responsibility to look after them from end to end, financing them, giving them the fertilizer, giving them what is necessary, protecting their goods, giving them the market. So It's long time we have been talking about it, but it's important that we do it, and the other countries are doing it. And modernizing the agriculture is the one area. I think for a long period of time, Sri Lanka had neglected the farmers, though we are talking very proud of them for a long period of time, but they have become a political tool. There has to be a vision to uplift them with the modernization of agriculture. That probably may solve 50% of those assessment problems.
We know that 2028 is quite crucial for us. Debt repayments are coming back into the equation. Are you personally confident that we have done enough reform-wise to make sure we don't see a repeat of what happened a couple of years ago?
So far, I think because of the reforms we have carried out prior to this government coming in, there is sufficient revenue government is generating. So because of that, our reserves are not bad. I don't see unless this external pressure continues in the manner it is, that could be very. I mean, I hope that this whole problem will come to an end as soon as possible. Otherwise, I don't see a major problem in repaying it. Though the IMF had asked you to have about 13.5 to 14 billion kind of a reserve by 2029 or so. The highest amount of loans which we paid was 2024 during this particular period of time, and we comfortably paid that 2025, I think. So I think we are on track to pay that. There is nothing alarming about it, provided these reforms are continuing. But my concern is people, the people who have no jobs and a large segment of the population has been left alone. So they can only be looked after by generating new jobs, new income. So that can only happen when serious investment comes and new industries come up and jobs are being created, not by government giving jobs or giving subsidiaries. I don't see a vision for that. That worries me. But to be honest, I don't see that we will have a major difficulty in 2028 in paying it, provided the current situation and the revenue stream continues, and provided this external shock through this Middle Eastern war doesn't prolong beyond next 3 months or so. If it prolongs beyond that, could be a problem for us.
Now, like I said at the beginning of my conversation, we're seeing quite an unpopular war in the Middle East, and the US invasion of Iraq famously created a vacuum, which in turn created various Islamic extremist terrorist organizations, including ISIS. Do you think we could see a repeat of history with this, and do you believe that Sri Lankan Muslim leaders are doing enough to protect their communities from extremism so that we don't see a repeat of what we saw in 2019?
I hope that there won't be a repeat of it, but having said so, if you carefully go through Janak de Silva report, which was done by about 4 judges, High Court judges and 2 Court of Appeal judges, and Janak de Silva is a Supreme Court judge right now, they identify the reasons for this. So some of those reasons have contributed for this extremism also. So having said so, Muslim community cannot deny the fact that some people within their ranks and file, call themselves Muslims or whoever it is, had carried out these attacks, right? So that came as a shocker for all of us. So rather than going after these conspiracy theories and all those things, let the investigations take place and the courts go through that. But there is the duty on the part of the Muslim community, both religious and civil society and political, to take ownership and to work towards moderation, contextualization, and live with everyone else, and weed out any pockets of extremism and extremist thinking out of the society, so that Muslims, first of all, Muslims are safe in this country, and second of all, that is the right thing to do for the country and country's future. So you learn lessons from your past, like what the Singaporeans and the Malaysians and Indonesians and all have done. I have gone and studied the anti-terrorism kind of a thing. They work very closely with each other, communities as well as the law enforcement authority. But if you miss the bus, like what you had in certain extent to India and 9/11 and all those things, then it could come to haunt you. So therefore, I feel not that Muslims are not concerned about it, but I would rather compelled to agree with you that we could do better and more to work towards more like a transparent administration of madrasas and their and what is taught by the madrasa, their funding sources, and a mix of both religious education as well as the secular education, and a necessity that everyone have minimum of 13 years of education at school before you go and full-time joining into it. Whether others are doing or not is our problem. You do it for your community so that they become balanced individuals when they pass out, and then to allow them to live contextually, right? But government also has a job to do that. That is important that government take the Muslim community into confidence, consult them in whatever the decision which is taking place, and also implement things like national school rather than race and religious based school. So these are few recommendations which most of these commissions have come out with from LLRC days. So that I think it's important that rather than appointing further commissions, look at the commissions and their recommendations and start implementing those.
Are you not satisfied with the follow through?
No, I'm not satisfied at all. There are so many things to be followed through. You should follow those. It's just that without making sometimes you need to take politically unpopular decisions. Immediately you will feel that it's a difficult task, but on the long run, like what we have gone through the IMF, people will start appreciating it. So because that's the right thing to do. So it's important that political leadership from all aspects of the country no longer should play ethnic politics in this country. We are sickened by this, and enough of that. I think people like Lee Kuan Yew had understood that very correctly, and today you see how they are, wherever they gone. Unfortunately we missed the bus, but then no point of talking about the past. You can start afresh now. So this is the time that we create that situation and see that we can create a united Sri Lankan identity while appreciating everybody's diversity, right? And the right to have their religion, culture, practice and everything. But in the meantime, when it comes to the national issues, we are all Sri Lankans.
We are just past the 7th anniversary of the Easter Sunday attacks, and we saw many investigations. The FBI, Australian Federal Police, Scotland Yard make conclusive investigations into this. We saw a few books written on the subject as well. But the religious leader, the cardinal, as well as certain victims' families are still demanding for answers to who a mastermind is. Why do you think they're not satisfied with all of these investigations by world-renowned organizations?
I really don't know. Unfortunately, I thought politicians have made it a political issue from the beginning. They come out with some narratives, this is that conspiracy. And Sri Lankans love to take a conspiracy theory. And it's such a national calamity. Very unfortunate. 7 years down the line, you are talking about some conspiracy. And the Attorney General Department, which concluded the investigation, based on the investigation, and indicted 37 people with 23,000 the charges, they should put their foot down and say that, look, investigations have been done, right? And then I remember in 2022, since Cardinal had never been, always restless, so I spoke to the president at that point in time, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and told that, shall we invite FBI once again? And through our ambassador in US, even right now with the ambassador, you can check with them, Mahinda Samarasinghe, we wrote to the FBI inviting them to come back, investigate further and do that. They wrote to us, so we would like to come and do it, but we don't see a point in that, because immediately aftermath of this, 33 people were deployed to Sri Lanka, and they worked for 2-3 weeks and recorded statement from everybody, including the victims and suspects and digital devices and everything, and come to a conclusive finding, right? And then we had Janak de Silva's commission. 457 people gave evidence, 647 days of proceedings. Supreme Court judgment for 5 Supreme Court judges. Imam commission, Malalgoda commission, Chayakidi Alvisi commission. So all these things have to come to one finding. So having done so, it's very obvious that on the 4th Indians told there is a attack plan. They gave the names of the churches, names of the people involved. Police did not do anything. On the 11th, military intelligence from East wrote to the IGP with copies to the CID DIG, saying that there is a possibility on that. Indians followed up on the 20th, saying that there could be an attack on the next day. So it was never the case of absence of intelligence. Intelligence was there, they did not act. But what happened is, in terms of the law, neither the army nor the intelligence could carry out investigations. They can only gather information. It is the police who could do that. With all this information, police did not investigate and arrest the culprit. And they have been found fault for that. From IGP, by the Supreme Court, everybody. Now, those people who are found fault are come back to those same positions. And what they want? They want to palm the blame to someone else. Very unfortunate. For that, they are creating a political narrative and creating a conspiracy without any evidence, just some political statement. And it is so unfortunate that Sri Lanka had to go through this after 7 years. And as a lawyer and a concerned citizen, I am worried. They did it twice in the past. In 2001, you remember, they went and Udugampala, DIG Udugampala went and raided a safe house of the Sri Lankan intelligence community. LTT got the information and wiped out the entirety of this thing, including Major Colonel Tuan Mutalib, the greatest intelligence officer Sri Lanka had ever produced. And for us, took about 5 years to recover from that.
And produce another.
And in 2015, after the so-called Yahapalne coming in, they went after the intelligence again. Sent them again, started prosecuting them, doing all sorts of things, with evidence, without evidence, just to give a narrative, political narrative. They were involved that time, they dismantled that. We saw 2019. What happened, right? So I'm worried that same thing is happening right now. So with this kind of persecution, with the political narrative, in order to prove a political narrative, the honest officers will just stay away from office and not do anything about it. And then my only hope is that will not result in a terrible disaster of intelligent failure.
Like you said, 7 years later, we saw this arrest happen in February. What does this do to closure? What does this do to the actual victims of this attack?
They are confused. The actual thing is there are report after report, commission after commission, Supreme Court judgment, investigations being carried out. So you have to tell the truth, and this is the actual thing, and there is a case. Let the case proceed with it, without coming out with every time a new story, just to palm off the blame of your failure. It is the failure of the police. That's what IGP was found fault with.
By the Supreme Court.
By the Supreme Court. That's what the High Court, that the Commission is saying. How can, in one of the report, it's very, very clear, Supreme Court is saying that, and also Janak de Silva's Commission is saying that when the Indians and the army intelligence gave them the information of possibility of an attack and armed movement and the people here, it was forwarded to the IGP. IGP had then forwarded it to the DIG CID. So they did not take action. In one of the report, Jayakidi Alvis report, they are saying that for the dereliction of duties, then CID, DIG and Director CID should be persecuted. Now they have come back on the position, and that's a terrible conflict of interest. You have been accused of dereliction of duty. You sit and investigate that. And what do? You will do anything to protect yourself. So this has never seen. And the current CID director submitted an affidavit to the Supreme Court. And he said that I am a full-time politician involved in the NPP politics. And he come back out of retirement and become the CID director. First time in the history a politician had been appointed as a CID director. What do you expect? Naturally I am sad as a lawyer. You know, if you have evidence, no one is above the law. You can go after anyone. Don't take me wrong saying that you can't touch the army or you can't touch the intelligence. Yes, you can, provided there is evidence. You can't be arresting people and come out with a political narrative and keep people inside. So if you have evidence, you allow the magistrate to look into this. The moment you come out and hide behind the facade of PTA, that means you are admitting you don't have evidence. You are taking the magistrate power away because he can't do anything about it for 1 year. So that's what is happening now. So they go and give a political statement in parliament and in courts every day. This is, one must understand one thing. The arrest of Suresh Sali is not not sanctioned by the magistrate. It's an executive action. He's been detained under PTA. Nothing to do with judiciary.
That's why you're freely talking about
Exactly. That is why I'm freely talking about it. So somebody tried to put this fear on you, saying that it is an ongoing case, sub judice. Absolutely no sub judice in this. This is the executive had taken a decision to detain them, and magistrate is precluded from looking into it by operation of law. Luckily, I am glad that I was instrumental in amending that. At least after 1 year you need to produce before the magistrate and you can go to the Court of Appeal for bail. Imagine if you did not have that. They would have been kept them for the rest of their life. I saw that some of the innocent Tamil boys and the Muslims particularly were kept for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years also without charge. So these laws need to be revisited also. If you have a good case and good evidence, why do you hide behind this veil? Produce before the magistrate. No magistrate is going to deny you power to arrest and detain if there is evidence. So that is the issue here right now. Now they are trying to, trying to intimidate people. You can intimidate few people, not everyone.
Are you hopeful of justice for Suresh Saleh? You have been very vocal about this from day one itself. Even figures like Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who has a lot on this, has been very vocal against his arrest. Are you hopeful that he will get his justice eventually?
He has to get his justice. You know, if he had done anything wrong, he should be prosecuted. But if otherwise, it's very, very unfair to go after someone who had done so much for this country. You know, then what is the example you're setting for people to join this kind of forces and work for the country? So I think if there is no evidence, he should get out of it. You know, absolutely. Why are they hiding behind the PTA? They are confident. After 7 years, PTA must be only used when there is an imminent threat. Attack tomorrow or day after or continuous attack. That's why it was meant for in 1979. 1979 because we were an ongoing battle with LTT. They are part of a terrorist organization. They could carry out attack at any point in time. So by that, it is impossible for you to find evidence and take them in and produce that kind of evidence. Overnight. So otherwise, PTA it shouldn't be used for just to detain people when you don't have evidence. Unless there is an active live threat. This man had been retired and doing his job. So this is just to hide behind these things, and unfortunately some of the lawyers have become mouthpiece of the CID.
Do you think the Hapalna government, which was in power at the time of the attacks, and the subsequent governments should have done more in terms of public awareness on these attacks, considering that how easily people are getting influenced even by things like the notorious Channel 4 documentary?
I don't know, but unfortunately, I think 90% of the people who are talking about it know that they are talking rubbish. They are doing it deliberately.
But there are people believing that rubbish.
That's the thing. So the people who advance this narrative knows that what they are talking, right? And so people believe in this. So and naturally, when you come out with conflicting versions, people are at a loss. So that's why it's important that a court of law must go through this and find out, not this narrative from this side and the other side. And I'm saying, when there are 5 commission reports and a Supreme Court judgment, and not an iota of evidence of suggesting this conspiracy, including the international organizations like FBI and Australian Federal Police and Scotland Yard, how can one or 2 officers who are prejudiced, who have an agenda, who have been asked by the commissions to charge for dereliction of duties, suddenly find evidence, and that evidence still not being produced before court? So that naturally worried, yes.
You had some strong words of advice, and we came to the conclusion about how your unpopular opinions at that time are paying off now. Will we ever see you return to politics?
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty happy with back in practice. Sri Lankan politics is a difficult job to do, particularly for professionals like us. We dependent totally on our professional income. We don't have side business. So people think that it's a privilege for honest politicians to come into politics. No, it's a huge sacrifice. Huge sacrifice. In my case, during that 5-year period of time, I lived on my savings. Luckily, I had some savings. So I don't think that we can continue to do so. Unlike in the countries in the Singapore or Eastern Asian countries where politicians, some of them are technocrats, and been at least given them a competitive salary so they can look after themselves, right? So here, number one. Number two is the benefit of the doubt is not given to the officers and the politicians. You are only finding fault with the people, and then it's a dangerous situation for the politicians to exist unless you have nothing else to do. We have better things to do. But that's an unfortunate situation. But Sri Lanka need at least 10 top technocrats to run this country. I hope one day the situation will be conducive to do that for the younger generation to come. In my case, I thought that I always wanted one term, and I wanted to do the reform.
You had coined the term system. We can agree.
I know. So I was interested because when I joined it, I wanted to reform the legal segment in terms of legal reforms, like more investment into it, technology, legal reforms, more judges, more courthouses. I did as much as possible, but unfortunately I could only hold it for 19 months. So I always wanted for 5-year term and get back to practice. So I'm happy, and that chapter is finished, and somebody else to take over from there.
But right on that topic, does the fear of if not me, who else ever cross your mind?
I think no one is indispensable. So you shouldn't give that impression to anyone, however clever you are, right? If you haven't created a second layer, unfortunately we did not have the time to do that, you are a failure. That's why Singapore is sustaining. Why, after doing it for 20-25 years, Lee Kuan Yew found a way to create the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. So it's a collective work what they're doing. They take pride in that. So it's not Sri Lanka is, unfortunately, for a long period of time, it's been people-centric. individual centric. You cannot do that. We must create a system and create institutions. And even the politics must be institutions, the parties. It's a meritocracy and invite good people to come in. You can't run this country by one person. You must understand that. One person is important on top with the heart at the right place, corruption free, efficiency, and treat everyone equal. Sri Lanka is a multicultural country. We need to see that all are being taken on board. Subject to that, that's the vision. Vision without action, as you know, is a daydream. In order to carry out the action, you need people who could deliver. We see that today. You need, so it's a teamwork. Any government today or tomorrow, any party who wants to aspire to come back, you must build that team and come back. I thought 2022 onwards, President Ranil Wickremesinghe had a good team. People like Kanchana, Vijay did a great job in his area what was given to him, and my colleague, a person like Semasinghe did a good job as Finance Minister, Deputy Finance Minister, State Minister of Finance. Mr. Ramesh Patirana did a relatively good job as the Minister of Health, and my State Minister was a great stand-in, Mr. Taraka Balasurya. We had a team and they did a good job. I think we need to develop that culture. It's not about people-centric. It's a meritocracy, right? So the individual-centric, it has to be meritocracy and people-centric. That's what we should do. I expected this camp to do that. I thought this is a collective group, but unfortunately they are not looking at my reading. I may be right or wrong, but what I feel is they are only looking at the loyalty, whether they are party cadres, they have been subject to the party. And most of them are not technocrats, they are academics. There's a huge difference between an academic and a technocrat, and somebody who had pragmatically run. It's easy to read the book and give a lecture at the classroom, but getting into the water and swimming is the difficult part. So at least, I mean, if you look at India, some of the top ministries are given to technocrats from nationalists. External Affairs Minister, Finance Minister, Mrs. Sitaraman, Power and Energy Minister, Gill. So they are good officers in the past. Massive exposure. So I think Sri Lanka learned from that, from Singapore and other places.
Thank you very much for taking the time, Minister. That's it from this episode of The Exchange. I'm Avin Indrasoma for Hiru News.